The small town of Birch Hollow had always been quiet. Nestled in the folds of a forest, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, and secrets seemed to vanish as quickly as they appeared. But there was one secret that refused to stay buried, one that had haunted the town for years. And now, as dusk fell, the air felt heavier, the shadows darker. Lena sat in her small, cluttered office, staring at the stack of files on her desk. She was a journalist, known for digging deep into cases others had long since forgotten. Birch Hollow had its share of mysteries, but the disappearance of Sarah Benson was something that never quite sat right with her. It had been nearly 2 decades since Sarah vanished without a trace, her last known whereabouts marked by an abandoned car by the edge of the woods. The police had closed the case years ago, ruling it as an unfortunate accident or a random abduction. But something about the way the town moved on, almost too quickly, made Lena suspicious. As she flipped through old photographs and police reports, the only sounds in the room were the rustle of paper and the faint hum of her desk lamp. Outside, the wind was picking up, causing the trees to sway and creak like ancient giants whispering secrets to each other. The atmosphere outside seemed to press in on her, as if the very air was thick with something unsaid. Lena's fingers paused over an old photograph of Sarah. She was smiling, young and full of life. Her eyes seemed too bright, almost unnaturally so. Lena had seen the photo 100 times, but tonight it felt different. The edges of Sarah's smile seemed too wide, as though it didn't reach her eyes. A sound made Lena look up, a subtle scraping noise, almost too quiet to catch. She turned her head, but there was nothing out of place in her small, dimly lit office. The building creaked again, a deep, groaning sound that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She shook it off, blaming the old wood for its age, but the feeling in the air didn't lift. It was as if something was waiting just beyond her vision, something watching her. Her phone buzzed on the desk, snapping her out of her reverie. A text from her editor. "Lena, please drop it. The Benson case is too old. Let it go." Lena stared at the message for a moment before typing a response. "I'm close. I can feel it." The reply came swiftly. "Don't say I didn't warn you." A chill ran down her spine, but she ignored it. She had always been a stubborn one, and if something was buried in Birch Hollow, she would find it. She stood up, the old floorboards creaking under her weight. The room seemed to grow colder, and the faint scraping sound returned, louder now, closer. She turned, scanning the room, but still, nothing moved. A flash of movement caught her eye. Just outside the window, a shadow darted past. It was brief, almost imperceptible. But Lena's heart raced. She stepped toward the window, but before she could reach it, the power flickered and went out. In the dark, Lena stood frozen. Her breath was shallow, her pulse thundering in her ears. Her phone buzzed again, but it wasn't her editor this time. The text read, "I see you." Lena's breath caught in her throat. She glanced around, heart hammering in her chest. The scraping noise was back. Now it was unmistakable, like something sharp dragging across the floor. Slowly she reached for the desk drawer where she kept a small flashlight. Her hands were trembling as she flicked it on, the beam cutting through the thick darkness like a knife. The room was empty, but the temperature had dropped dramatically. She shivered, her breath visible in the cold air. She moved toward the door, her flashlight beam wavering in the dark. Another scraping sound, louder now, came from behind her. She spun around, the light catching a figure in the corner of the room. It was a woman, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a twisted, unearthly smile. Lena's mouth went dry, her throat tightening as if it were impossible to scream. The figure took a step toward her, its movement jerky, unnatural. Lena backed away, her mind racing. Was this a hallucination? A trick of the light? The figure tilted its head, eyes fixed on Lena, a low, growling laugh escaping from its throat. The voice was familiar but distorted, cracked like it had been stretched too thin. It was Sarah, but it wasn't Sarah. Lena stumbled backward, her flashlight flickering wildly before going out completely. The darkness swallowed her whole, and she could hear the figure's breathing, raspy and wet. A sudden coldness enveloped her, a suffocating, freezing force that made her limbs go numb. "Help me," the voice whispered, so close to her ear that Lena could feel the hot breath on her skin. "Help me finish it." The words crawled under her skin, seeping into her bones. She didn't understand what was happening, only that she was no longer in control. The floor beneath her feet gave way, and she fell. The lights flickered back on just as Lena hit the ground, her body landing hard against the cold wooden floor of her office. She lay there for a moment, gasping for air, her heart racing. The room was still, silent. The figure was gone. The door was shut. But something had changed. As Lena pushed herself up, she caught sight of something on the wall. A message written in red, dripping down like fresh paint. "It's not over." The chill in the room remained, the oppressive weight of it pushing down on her chest. She could feel it now, deep in her bones. The case wasn't just about Sarah Benson anymore. It was about something darker, something far worse, and Lena had just scraped the surface. And as she stepped back toward the desk, the scraping sound returned, louder than ever before, coming from somewhere beneath the floor.